Good evening and welcome to the December 6th meeting of the Glenville Town Board. Please rise for the invocation and pay motions. Tonight for our invocation, I would just like to read the Serenity Prayer. Would you join me in prayer? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, and the courage to change things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardships as the pathway to peace, taking as he did the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, and trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will. And that I may be reasonably happy in my life and supremely happy with him forever and in the next world to come. Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilman Martin?
Here.
Councilman Cittavani?
Here.
Councilman Hennel?
Here.
Should be noted for the record that Councilwoman Worzbowski is absent tonight. Supervisor Ketzley?
here. Thank you all for coming tonight. Our agendas are up front. If you did not receive an agenda, we have quite a few public hearings, which we'll get to in just a moment. But I just want to add that, draw your attention to the fact that there are two add-on resolutions tonight. One is a resolution add-on number 1, adopting the extension for Water District 2 for a property located at 207 to 213 Second Auger Road. Not Rob, just print that, Second Auger Road. And then the second is the resolution adopting the extension of Sewer District number 2 for the property located at 207 to 213 Second Auger Road. So those two add-ons will be taken up at the end of the meeting, actually before new business, and then we'll move into new business. So with that, we'll start with town council reports, and I'll start on my left with Councilman Hennel.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. A couple things. First, I think after everybody enjoyed rather nice weather for a good Thanksgiving holiday, we had our first annual tree lighting ceremony here in the town of Glenville in our renovated town center with all the lights and wreaths, and I think that was very well received. It looked like we had about 100 people there, so that was fantastic. Hopefully that's a first annual, not just a first time. Secondly, just as liaison for the parks, just would like to report that there were some meetings and continued discussions after the Gazette and Mr. Williams, they did such a nice job highlighting the new trail we'll be able to have connecting Anderson Park to Indian Meadows. That work is continuing on signage to let everybody know about where the trails are and how they connect and the distances. So more to come on that. Thank you.
Councilman Martin?
Yeah, I attended a workshop session of the Local Development Corporation, and the discussion focused around re-energizing the Let's Talk Business event in April. So I think there'll be some things forthcoming on that in the first quarter of next year. And we also talked about reinvigorating the Small Business and Economic Development Committee, and I'd be happy to put my hat in the ring to serve in that committee in the upcoming year. So, and I think that'll be a key component to revitalization of that Let's Talk Business event.
Thank you. Councilman Cittavani?
Yes, last week I was with the Town Traffic Safety Committee, and we have a couple of proposals that we're going to put forth to the board here in a couple of weeks. Also, a couple of weeks ago, I was with a teleconference with our new website that I'm sure the supervisor is going to comment about in his comments to the board.
I wasn't going to.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilman Cittavani. With that, we'll move into the public hearings. I noticed quite a few people signed up for what are public hearings. You do have an opportunity to speak at the public hearing. You also have an opportunity to speak at privilege of the floor. So in essence, you have 2 bites at the apple. If you want to change what you said in one, you can do it in the other. But the difference is the public hearing is on the record. verbatim. If you speak at privilege of the floor, it's a summary. You just summarize your comments. If you want your comments in the record verbatim, then you would want to speak at the public hearing. But you can speak at either or both. So I just wanted to clarify that. So since public hearings open up, you can decide what you want to do at that time. So the first public hearing I will open is one to listen to anyone who's interested in the application of Jacob Ingram seeking a variance for the temporary town moratorium that prohibits the establishment of townhouses, duplexes, twin homes, and two-family dwellings within the suburban residential zoning district. That one is now open. Anyone wish to be heard on that matter? This is regarding the temporary moratorium as it relates to Jacob Ingram specifically. Going once, going twice, seeing none. That public hearing is now closed. Next public hearing is a public hearing to hear all people interested in the proposed local law that will amend a series of zoning text amendments in an individual zoning map amendment. That's fairly general. I see that our planners in the audience, Kevin, if you can just elaborate exactly, those are the moratoriums, if you can elaborate on those just a little before we open the public hearing, if you wouldn't mind. If you wouldn't mind. Just so everyone knows exactly what the zoning text amendment is.
All right, the amendment is actually constitutes, it's constituted by two amendments, a series of zoning text amendments and a zoning map amendment. The zoning text amendments are the result of implementation of the various moratoria that you have in place right now. It involves the prohibition of a variety of land uses in certain zoning districts, essentially calling back some of the multifamily uses that are allowed in certain districts, as well as duplexes and townhouses in the single-family district. It also pulls back a little bit on outdoor recreation type uses in the rural residential and agricultural district. We added a number of definitions to clarify some kind of some vague provisions that we have in the ordinance now. And the zoning text amendment is it deals with adult uses and similar uses that are not very desirable, items such as pawn shops, what else is on the list? Tattoo parlors, those sorts of uses. Right now, those uses are allowed in our Research, Development, and Technology District, which is all of the industrial park, as well as a fairly large area of outlaws and along Freeman's Road, also along Maple Avenue. What this would do is narrow the area where it's allowed down to a 19-acre section on the northern boundary of the industrial park. So it draws it back in significantly, which is allowed. It's allowed constitutionally to do that, and it'll be done through the creation of an overlay zoning district over that park. So the uses that are allowed right now in that industrial park could still locate in that 19-acre area, but if there were to be these less than desirable uses, that would be the location that they would be confined to.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, Kevin, those less than desirable uses are also subject to site plan review.
Correct.
Correct.
Thank you, Kevin. So we'll open the public hearing on that, because of the zoning changes that Kevin just talked about. Anyone should be heard on this matter regarding the zoning changes to various zoning changes and text amendments. Going once, going twice, seeing none, is now closed. The next public hearing is to hear all persons interested in the establishment of extension to Water District Number 2, which relates to, here it talks about the tax map numbers and all, but as I mentioned, it's that property on Sacandaga Road. And in that public hearing, for anyone who wishes to be heard on the extension to Water District Number 2. Who wishes to be heard on that matter? And once, and twice, seeing none, that public hearing is now closed. Next public hearing is similar, and this is to hear all persons interested in the establishment of the extension of Sewer District Number 2 to the very same address on Sacandaga Road. That public hearing is open. Anyone wish to be heard on that matter? The extension to Sewer District Number 2 for the property on Sacandaga Road, as we mentioned earlier. Going once, going twice, Seeing none, that public hearing is now closed. The next public hearing is the public hearing to hear all persons interested in the proposed zoning map amendment by Karen M. Dake on behalf of the Happy Rehab at Maritime Center, Hall Cross. That public hearing is now open. I suspect there's a person or two that like to be heard on that matter. Yes, sir.
I'll start.
Yeah, so you come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and then make your comments. No problem.
For you guys.
And if you would spell your last name.
No problem. My name is Regine DeVoe. I'm with Boswell Engineering. My last name spelling is D-E-V-A-U-X. A lot of similar looking letters than my scribbles. I'm here at the request of Ms. Dake, who is the owner of this property and is proposing the zoning change.
Could you, just before you get started, we have this problem all the time, could you tilt that board a little bit so the audience can see it as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's always a, yeah.
Well, you guys have seen it. Do you want me to point it right towards him? Or?
No, actually, take it to the board, just so it can, it's
Yeah.
too small.
Yeah, it's great.
You can't see it.
Small, unfortunately. I tried coloring it to make it a little better, but you know, got those restrictions. So there is a current building that exists that Ms. Dake is proposing to use as a rehab center, the Happy Rehab Center, the Maritime Center. She was also, at the request of the board, she was supposed to submit a site plan that would show any proposed expansions in the future, any possible proposed expansions, and he did show on this plan, there's a possible proposed 5,356 square foot expansion for a possible aquatics therapy unit. We also did a feasibility study on this plan just to show that if we did do that expansion, that the site would facilitate it, which shows the additional parking necessary, a proposed rain garden to treat any runoff from the building that would be necessary. There's also an existing use on the site, a rowing club, that would be the building to the left on that plan. It's 14,550 square foot building. That use would stay and would not change. We submitted a traffic study, which I believe everyone on board got a hold of that to read that, and show that there wouldn't be an impact based on the traffic, any lower levels of serviceability. We also did a trip generation study, which confirmed that because CME had done the traffic study. So we had read through, there's a proposed development, this goes through the proposed development plan. And we were agreeable with that. It very clearly lays out the exact uses that the building would be, and we're okay with that. So, let's, do you have any questions from the board on that before I open the floor? Thank you.
Okay, so anyone else wish to be heard? Yes, sir.
I'm Harry Darling, 21 Van Forest Drive, Burnt Hills, New York. I am primarily representing the past directors and officers of the Capital Region Maritime Center. In the 1997 period, the Capital Region, or the Maritime Center, had been awarded a $940,000 grant or a zero interest loan from HUD through the Canal Corridor Initiative Program. You might recall that. Stan Kibber, Gary Siegel, Clarence Mosier, who was past town supervisor, representatives from BOCES, and myself selected the current location from a host of other places in the town of Glenville. With that money, we built the existing structure in Maritime Drive and opened the program up in the fall of 1999 for the first class. Our objective was to provide vocational education and skill set to at-risk students. We were passionate about our project. Our motto was keeping good kids good. The program had a good run for supporting 23 school districts and providing a place for Burnt Hills and Shenandoah rowing programs to thrive. Even today, you can visit the baby farms and see a couple of the beautiful bateaus that the students made. Around 2012, BOCES closed the program due to funding restrictions. There were efforts to continue the use of the building for school programs, but in the end that failed. I have spent many years and long days supporting the BOCES program. I remain very passionate about what happens to the building and the property. Over a year ago, Karen Day purchased the property with plans to locate her physical therapy for children business there. I wish to express to the town board that I feel this is a very positive use of the facility, and I am sure the founding members of the Maritime Center Board would feel the same way. This business is very conducive to the existing building and has essentially no impact on traffic, certainly less than the previous school. In an effort to assist Karen Day to get her business up and running quickly as possible, I strongly encourage the town board to promptly approve the necessary actions to make this possible. The good news is that between Karen Dake's Physical Therapy for Children program and the adjacent rowing programs, the Capital Region Maritime Center location will continue to serve the youth of our area as was originally intended. I am confident that the founding members of the Capital Region Maritime Center will be pleased with that action. We are still keeping good kids good. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? I did promise this young lady.
Thank you.
And then we'll come, I promised you to come back now.
We're also eager, right? Good evening, my name is Beth Gatto, G-A-T-T-O. I live at 3 Willow Lane in Ballston Lake, New York. My comments are more directed about the heart of the community that we'd like to grow as you move forward. I can't imagine any town not being excited to welcome Happy Rehab to their business community. Then again, I don't understand the politics. I don't know competing interests that you have at heart here. What I do know is the value of the quality that her business would bring to Glenville. I lived and worked in Saratoga Springs for 35 years. I was a school psychologist for the city district there. In my practice, I referred countless families to Karen and Cynthia in their practice. I always did that with confidence. I knew that I was referring them to the best practice in the Capital Region when it came to helping little children. I never got bad feedback, ever. When children needed adaptive equipment, when they needed financial assistance to bridge that gap between insurance and their needs, I would refer them to one of the many organizations that Karen helped establish in our area. And then one day, my own child was diagnosed with a degenerative and rare condition. What to do? Well, I was lucky. In my own backyard, I had the best. So I took my Ben to Karen. His prognosis is not what any parent hopes for. By now, he should have perished or be totally dependent on me and my husband for care. Instead, he lives independently in Atlanta, Georgia. He is the head motion graphics designer at a major ad agency. Yes, he struggles and he has challenge, but he has vitality and a zest for life, and that zest was given to him by Karen. Sorry to be emotional, I cannot help. She is responsible for it. She went beyond in her treatment of Ben. She researched his approaches. She traveled with him to get him care. I owe it to her. This is one story, but I saw her give that same energy to countless others, and I see others here tonight. Who would not welcome such positive intention to your community? She draws families, she draws those who love children, she cares for the community that she works in. She establishes great links. I have attended wonderful community days that she has sponsored. I've seen children have fun, I've seen them interface with their families, share help, and most of all, the feeling that what they needed existed in their own backyard. Her goal is help, healing, independence for families and children in our area. If you are wise enough to grant her that opportunity, she and Cynthia will achieve their goals with their knowledge, network of professional contacts, hard work, and passion. In this season of giving, do not miss the opportunity to give this to your community. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much.
My name is Cynthia Dean, and I live at 46 Jackson Street in Saratoga Springs. It's hard to follow that, but I wanted to just tell you a little bit about what we do. I'm a wife and mother and have been a pediatric physical therapist for almost 23 years. I worked with Karen at Minor Improvements PT for 11 years at the Saratoga location and plan to continue working there upon reopening. You've heard a lot about our zoning issues, but I wonder if you know about us or what we do, or our reputation in the pediatric community. After graduating from Upstate Medical's PT program in Syracuse, I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area and worked in various children's hospitals. At the University of California in San Francisco, I worked in the neonatal intensive care unit in the pediatric rehabilitation department. Later, I was the primary PT for the orthopedic clinic at Oakland Children's Hospital, a level 1 trauma center, with emergency medical helicopters landing outside our offices daily. Here I also treated patients with traumatic brain injuries, burns, and various cancers and blood disorders. I worked closely with the physicians, nurses, social workers, and other therapists to provide the best care possible, utilizing the whole team. So what do we do as pediatric PTs in our clinic? Minor Improvements PT is an outpatient clinic, so children 0 to 21 years of age come to receive services from us. A child may be seen several times per week, once a week or more on a consultative basis, depending on the needs. We may see a little boy who is dependent on others for mobility, helping his family position him, stand and transfer him to and from his wheelchair, roll to help with changing clothes, consult with his orthotist to get the most ideal bracing for his feet in order to stand and prevent tightness at the ankles. We might assist him with exercises in the warm water pool where gravity is eliminated and he can move more freely in water than on land, where we can work on chest and rib cage expansion for more effective breathing, reducing the risk of pneumonia. We may work with a newborn baby who had a traumatic birth and is at risk for developmental delays, or a 16-month-old little girl who is not crawling or walking yet. We as pediatric PTs provide hands-on treatment to facilitate age-appropriate movements, whether it be walking or crawling, lifting a head while in tummy time, kicking their feet and bringing hands and head to midline for visual tracking or grasping a toy. We provide rehabilitation for an athlete with an ankle sprain or an ACL injury, or a 4-year-old who had a leg fracture and now needs help strengthening his hip muscles in order to walk without a limp. As PTs, we teach our families to work with their children at home. We refer them to appropriate specialists as needed. We are trained to recognize abnormal movement patterns and will often refer a child to a local pediatric neurologist at Albany Medical Center or child neurology in Clifton Park. A child who has cerebral palsy in need of a complex surgery on their bones and tendons would be referred to a pediatric orthopedist or rehab doctor who specialize in neuromuscular disorders, perhaps at Boston Children's Hospital, where they have a full pediatric team. We regularly discuss our findings and concerns with our local pediatricians, who in turn look to us for guidance. We call on our friends and colleagues from all over the country for advice, feedback, and second opinions. Minor Improvements PT has an excellent reputation, not only in our local community, but also in the surrounding regions. Physicians refer patients to us from Johns Hopkins, Boston Children's Hospital, Upstate Medical in Syracuse, Columbia Presbyterian, as well as Albany Medical Center locally, and numerous other pediatricians. Karen has over 26 years of pediatric experience in a variety of settings, as well as multiple certifications, including pediatric clinical specialist. We are both trained in the specialized movement assessment of infants that is highly indicative of a diagnosis of cerebral palsy. We are members of various professional organizations and attend yearly meetings where we stay up to date on the most current research available, and we apply this to all of our treatments. Together with the other therapists who have worked at Minor Improvements PT, we are well known for our highly specialized pediatric services. Children are not just little adults. So why would you want us here? Minor Improvements PT and Happy Rehab will bring pediatric expertise to your area. Not only our expertise, but the expertise of a huge network of pediatric practitioners and colleagues throughout the country through our ongoing collaboration. Our clinic is an asset to any community, and we look forward to being part of this one. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I am Jessica Evans, 31 Mohawk Avenue in Alpha's. I'm a member of the Alpha's Residents Association. We've had the pleasure of having Karen come to our meetings. We fully support Karen's business becoming an Alpha's neighbor. We hope that you will make it possible for her to move in and begin work. We see absolutely no reason why this wouldn't be a great addition to our community. If I may, I also have an email from another ARA member who was unable to attend. I'd like to read it. This is from Gary Palmetier of First Street in Alpha's. I fully support Karen Dake's mission and endeavor to bring minor improvements physical therapy to the Maritime Center in Alpha's. Over the past 6 months, we've engaged in some unprecedented advocacy, both as individuals and as representatives of the ARA. Throughout the process, there have been 2 recurring themes. 1, does it fit? 2, we want to promote smart development in the Hamlet of Alpha. In my opinion, the answer to this proposal is yes on both counts. Minor improvements fits wonderfully within Alpha's in an existing structure and puts it to a noble use to provide therapeutic services to children. It will not have any known negative impacts to the community with the exception of 1 second of traffic delay, apparently. I believe that the stated mission and building is the definition of smart development, and the proposed zoning changes are indeed compatible and harmonious with our community. I will be happy to welcome minor improvements as our neighbor. I urge all who hear this to please consider support of this proposal. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Sherry Curry, and I live in Boston Spa. It's 142 Caterosseras Drive in Boston Spa. My young man there, my son is 18 years old. He was diagnosed with a very rare genetic neuromuscular disease a month before he turned 10 years old. It very, very quickly went from running around doing hip hop, playing soccer, to doing taekwondo, to getting leg braces and having to have a wheelchair and a cane. He was, by the end of the summer of 4th grade, he was sitting in a wheelchair by 11:30 in the morning and not able to play with the kids. It was terrible. We started going to minor improvements in Saratoga, and he had Cynthia as his physical therapist where she worked with him. And it's amazing the things that physical therapy I never really believed could do. Never mind just the physical strength that he was able to gain. She taught him how to walk properly with a cane without tripping everyone else and himself in the hallways of school. But they have a very good rapport with, they keep themselves constantly going to conferences, and they're educated and on the up and coming trends. They have actually been able to refer us to Boston Children's to see orthopedic surgeons I never would have gotten in, nor did our doctors know about. Eric had Botox therapy, which nobody knew about around here. He went from that, he had leg lengthening, calf lengthening surgery. The doctors in Children's Hospital, when we say he goes to minor improvements, they were all like, oh, we know that place. Albany Med also, and they have a very good rapport. They keep themselves knowing what doctors are the best to see, what kind of treatments work, what is a fad. They talked me out of something which I realized later on was just theirs. Basically snake oil, they were going to take our money. So I think it'll be a wonderful asset to your community. I can't imagine, Karen keeps it, if people are worried about what the business is going to look like, she is very particular, very nice curb appeal. She's very strict about how her place looks. You've never seen anything with pediatrics looking as clean, I have to say. So we've tried other physical therapy places. They don't work out so well. And I just want to say I'm here to support them. Thank you.
Sherry?
Yes.
Just repeat your address for me.
Do you want me to spell it? It's Caterosseras Drive, and it's Boston Spa, New York. And it's 142. You need to
Thank you.
Directors.
His name Keith.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? Going once, going twice, seeing none. Public hearing is now closed. So now we'll move to privilege of the floor. Many of you have spoken already. You can speak again. Is there Regine here?
That's it.
Oh, you spoke, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just doing the intro on that.
So all of those who spoke do not wish to speak again, I assume. I'll skip over calling you. And then I'll move to the one person who does not have the Maritime Center as their topic, and that is, it looks like Sandy Granula?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I actually have some just quick questions.
Sure.
I realize all these people to be here. Sandy Darnelli, 15 Redwood Drive, in Glenville. I just had questions on the senior center. It's one of your resolutions. I was curious as to how many people bid it and how far it was overbid. And then I was wondering, are you, when you go to redesign it, are you putting more money towards the budget to bridge that gap? Or are you still sticking with that budget?
Go ahead.
The other one is design fees, if you're paying additional design fees to have them redesign it. And then I was curious about the completion date, so if you have to go through like the whole realm again, when you estimate it to be done.
I was going to address this in my supervisory report.
Oh, you want me to sit down? That's fine.
It's up to you. Typically, it's not a Q&A session, so I'll
Okay.
probably just respond to the supervisory report.
That's fine.
And if there's a question you still have, just shout out at me and I'll answer the question from the floor.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard at privilege of the floor? Yes, sir.
My name is Pete Hooper. I live on 1965 Amsterdam Road, very close from the old combination trucking terminal with their illegal lights that are still shining.
You mean Old Dominion?
What?
Old Dominion.
Yes, that are Old Dominion. They feel like Old Domination, but yeah, Old Dominion.
Thank you.
The illegal lights are still lighting up my trees 60 feet up. They're still lighting up my bedroom, even though the law says that they shall be shielded, aimed on the property and kept on the property and not trespassed on public right-of-way or other people's right-of-way. But I'd like to speak tonight primarily about the proposed change in the zoning law about the solar arrays. I received an email announcement about the agenda of various town board meetings, and I saw that. I would suggest that perhaps the text of items such as that on the agenda be included either as an attachment or as a something you can click on or something you can find fairly easily on the town website. I'm an old guy who's not very tech smart, but people send me things and I can click on it and read the wording of it, and I could not do that. I went to the website, I tried to poke in solar law change and this part of the law, I couldn't find any of it, so I had to call and ended up coming down to get a copy of it. So I would just think there's somebody in the town that's more tech savvy than me that could make that readily available so we could read it without having to come up here. I appreciate the wording in the proposed law saying it supports clean and renewable solar energy. However, there's a section of it where it limits ground-mounted solar panels to industrial type zones. It doesn't allow them in the backyard of, say, farmer or residential property. There's a lot of other things that are allowed in your backyard. It could be, the pavilion, it could be a shed, it could be a swimming pool. And to just automatically, somebody whose roof may not be oriented correctly, or somebody who, like me, there's trees shading my house to keep it cool in the summer. And to cut those down to then put solar panels up so I can run an air conditioner seems kind of counterintuitive. So I would be concerned about that, just elimination, the way it just eliminates ground-mounted solar and that they just have to be on the roof. It doesn't seem very productive, and it does rule out a certain portion of people being able to get that clean energy. So I would suggest that possibly that be changed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Privilege of the floor.
Yes, sir. Would I be able to address the board regarding the moratorium on two family homes?
You certainly can. It's privilege of the floor, so you can really talk about anything you like. There was a public hearing on that, but that's okay. This is your second bite.
Thank you. I made a mistake. I didn't realize that's when I was supposed to come up. My name is Jacob Ingram. The address is 18 Drowns Road Extension in Glendale. I wasn't sure if I was going to have the waiver request that I submitted.
We, at the work session, passed it around. We only had one copy, but...
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I have the front two pages if I can hand those out.
Sure.
Yeah, and I won't go through the whole binder that I submitted to you, Supervisor Chris, because that would take us all night. But I tried to summarize it just under this document that I just handed out. And I could go through this, and if you guys need to stop me at any moment, please feel free. So my purpose in being here is to request a waiver regarding the moratorium applying to suburban residential neighborhoods. I'll start by giving a brief chronology and then explain why I feel the moratorium does impose extraordinary hardship in this particular situation, and I cannot grateful for your time and your consideration. I've split this into 5 phases just to make it a little easier to understand. So phase 1, I submitted a building permit application. It was denied, and I'll go through that. So this was back in 2014. I submitted an application to convert the basement of my home into livable space. That was reviewed by the inspector at the time, Paul Borisenko. He had to deny it for 3 reasons, and we've listed those here. He said we neglected to show the smoke and CO detectors, it needed a conditional use, and then a septic evaluation needed to be done. And he advised us that if we corrected these, we can resubmit it. So then phase 2. We corrected these 3 issues, the revised plans, which I've submitted in that big binder that you had. They show the smoke and CO detectors where they needed to be. Regarding the conditional use application, Paul explained that by having a kitchen in our plans, the basement was considered a separate apartment and it would require a conditional use permit. So he said there were 2 ways that we could move forward. Option 1, we could put the job on hold, get the conditional use permit first, and then get the building permit and continue with construction after that. Option 2, we could take the kitchen right out of the plans, making it no longer a separate apartment, and that would allow him to move forward and grant the building permit. We could begin construction and then go for the conditional use permit after that, and then add the kitchen back in. So we chose option 2. Septic evaluation, I won't go into that, that's the bottom of the first page. He just needed us to do a study and show that the current septic situation would accept the changes of adding another bedroom. So phase 3 was we resubmitted the application with these recommended changes, and this application was approved. So this was in March of 2016. This was approved by Paul, and the building permit was issued by Terry. And then Paul retired in June, and at that point we started working with Arnold. He came in for an inspection in October of 2016, and then we renewed the building permit in March. So then phase 4 is where it gets a little tricky. So it was not until I attempted to apply for the conditional use permit that I learned about a moratorium which had been in place since February, which was 1 month prior to my building permit being finalized. But it was over a year after my initial application for a permit, which was 2014. Town Supervisor Chris Ketzley informed me that there was a waiver process to be submitted to the town supervisor and the town board, and in order to be granted a waiver, one needed to show that the moratorium would impose hardship upon the landowner and not adversely affect health, safety, and general welfare. So I submitted my waiver request and a payment for that, and thought that I had resolved the issue, and moved forward with the kitchen. Now, at this point, I recognize that I took a misstep because in spite of my optimism about the waiver process, I still didn't have a permit for the kitchen. So we completed construction in April, and then in May, I learned that the permit had been turned, or my request had been turned back to me. It hadn't at that time been processed. Then there was the building permit expired, and we had a final inspection with Terry and with Arnold, and they had to issue a notice of alleged violation regarding the kitchen. My request is that we would be granted a waiver, or I think a variance is the right term, regarding the moratorium because it does impose extraordinary hardship in the following ways. My goals, which were to build and rent out a separate apartment in the basement, never changed throughout the process, but the moratorium, which was enacted halfway through the process, now prohibits me from accomplishing these goals. My building permit application started over a year prior to the enactment of the moratorium, so that was December of 2014 versus February of 2016. I attempted to follow the required steps, building permits, fees, inspections, variances, but this turned out to be a time-consuming process, and the moratorium caught up with us. The moratorium causes the $20,000 I have invested into this project, not counting labor, most of which I did myself, along with my dad, to be a huge personal loss since the whole project has no value if I can't rent it out as originally intended. A variance from this moratorium would not adversely affect health, safety, or general welfare of the citizens of the town. That is my request. I don't know if there's anything else I can.
I don't think so. I mean, I had one, I don't know if anyone has a question. No, but I did have a question.
Absolutely.
And this is provided by you. I just want to make sure I have this right, because I think we spoke about this. Your building permit was issued on March 7th of 2016.
Correct.
A month after the moratorium.
Yeah, that's right.
Your building permit, you originally applied for with a kitchen, but you were told that you had to remove the kitchen.
Correct.
Unless you had a conditional use permit.
Yep.
You live at 18 Drums Road Extension. The permit that was issued says specifically, you are permitted to convert an existing basement into habitable space. This permit does not include future accessory apartment. It will need a conditional use permit for approval. So I'm just, want to make sure I understand if that permit was issued in that way, and that you understand that the permit was issued in that way.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. That is correct. And when it was issued, we were having conversations, and again, this was with Paul, about, so my intentions were very clear that my goal was to finish the basement so that I could rent it out. And that's why I tried to draw attention to his advice regarding the conditional use application. He said we could take care of that first, and then we could continue on with construction. Or he said if we just took the kitchen out temporarily, what he could do is issue the permit, and then we could go through the conditional use application. Once we got that taken care of, we could get a building permit to put the kitchen back in, and we could be on our way. What I was not made aware of was the moratorium. And so once I did go to get the conditional use permit as he had recommended, I was told about the moratorium, which had been passed 1 month prior. So had I known about that, and I wish that I did know about that, I would have gotten this in 1 month sooner, so that this wouldn't have been an issue. But my actual original permit was submitted in 2014, and I just say that to show this has been something that's been underway for quite some time prior to the passing of the moratorium.
I just want to be clear.
Yeah.
The permit was issued clearly stating that a second apartment was not allowed in a dwelling unit. A complete dwelling unit constitutes a living area, a bathroom, and a kitchen. So there could not be a kitchen, and you understood that.
Well, the kitchen was actually in the plans.
And removed.
And then they drew an X through it until we resolved the conditional use application. That is
Right.
correct, yes.
And there was never any official authority given to put in a kitchen. And yet a kitchen exists today. Right?
Right.
To just put a
I
fine
mean-
point on this, Jake, I think to Councilman Martin's point, you referred to a December 14th application that you filled out, you signed an application on December 14th that says here that you're going to add a new bedroom, a new bathroom, and a new cooking area. And that was, you had plans attached to that, and that was for the full with the kitchen. And under the official use, it says denied. Date denied, 1/23/15.
Right.
And the reason for the denial by our building inspector for that permit application was said specifically right here, need conditional use permit,
Correct.
need a septic evaluation. He denied that permit on 1/23/15. That application is dead. You don't get grandfathered in with a denied application. You returned on March 2nd of 16. And on the application that you signed, you said, description of work, quote, finished basement, sheetrock walls, vinyl floor, drop ceiling. Value of work, $5,000. That was the value you put on that work. That's what you said you were going to do, and that permit was issued without a kitchen, without anything else. You had to come back in and fill out, because that expired, you had to fill out, I'm sorry, on the 28th of February, you fill out an application, it just said finished basement, $3,500 in work. And that was accepted on 3/2/17. So you were denied, you were told you needed a conditional use permit a year before the moratorium went into effect. I understand that.
Yeah.
But then you didn't come back again until after the moratorium was in effect and applied for the, and then you were told specifically you can't, maybe a moratorium was mentioned or not, but specifically needed a use permit for the kitchen. And you never came back for that use permit. And nobody knew you were building a kitchen.
Well, so I think what we're missing here is that he gave me two options. So you're right, that would have been option one. And so that's why I tried to spell out option two. Option two, he said, was we could remove the kitchen temporarily. This was never a permanent solution to have a full apartment without a kitchen. You could remove the kitchen from the plans, which would make it no longer technically a separate apartment. He could give us the building permit, we could get started, and then while we were working, we could start going on a conditional use application, which I did attempt to do, but when I did attempt to do that, I was told about the moratorium, which hadn't been in place, but at that point was. And so my request is that I potentially could be treated like someone before the moratorium was passed, that essentially that there would be a waiver or a variance.
Well, but again, in my mind, the important thing is, there was never any authoritative approval of a second dwelling unit in that space, meaning the kitchen was never approved, and yet a kitchen was built.
Yes, sir, and I acknowledge that.
And I mean, I think the solution here is not a waiver from this moratorium, but for you to make application for a use variance to the zoning board of appeals.
You can't
Well,
do
that's
that
what the moratorium prohibits.
or without the waiver. But it's still after the fact.
Well, yeah, and in my mind, I think the kitchen needs to come out. I'm just gonna be frank with you.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's only fair to a lot of people who come through that building department filing accurate building permits and doing the work as permitted. It's just not the case where you can go ahead and build something and then after the fact, get retroactive approval. That's
Right.
not the way it
Right,
works.
and that's not what I'm asking for.
Well, it kind of sounds like it is.
Well, what you had said earlier about going through the conditional use application, that's where the tension lies, is that I'm prohibited from doing that because of the moratorium. So that was my one way forward.
Well, given what's going on tonight, we're about to enact changes that are going to clarify the zoning, and the moratorium will expire.
Okay.
And then you can apply for a use variance. Yeah, you could.
It's gonna make permanent the moratorium.
Well, yeah, but once the zoning is enacted, that takes out,
Oh, I got you.
then you come in for a two-family dwelling in a single-family zone and take your chances on a use variance. But in the interim, in my opinion, the kitchen needs to come out.
Yeah, and it's been all disconnected and completely.
All right, then, and I think that's the proper course of action here. In my opinion.
Anything else, Jacob? Because it is privilege of the floor, I don't want to turn it into too much of a back and forth. So anything else you have for the board? We won't act on this until the 20th.
Of December.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Still on privilege of the floor. Anyone wish to be heard on privilege of the floor? Going once, going twice. Seeing none, privilege of the floor is now closed. Supervisor's comments to the board. Councilman Heddle's taking a lot of notes today. Always busy. A few things, I'll start with the senior center bid since it came up on the privilege of the floor. Technically, it wasn't overbid. It just came in at a much higher number than we anticipated or budgeted for. We only had 2 bids for it, which we thought really weren't a lot for the project. We're not redesigning the project or going back to the drawing board with it. All we're doing is sending out bids again, hopeful that we get more activity in another bid opening, at least another bid or 2 to kind of come closer to what we think is reasonable for the project. You know, if the question is how far from the project did we think it was from what we budgeted, probably a good $120,000 over what we anticipated as being a reasonable cost. So it's just going out, we'll enact a resolution tonight to send it out for rebid, and hopefully we'll get new bids on that. I don't know if that answers all your questions, or if you have anything else on the senior center. Did that answer everything? Ma'am?
Yeah, you're just sort of hoping to get more people to bid, and then if they do, you're only be delayed about a month or so.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Some quick updates, some things have already been mentioned already. One, I think, was talked about by Councilman Hale. We had a fabulous story on the bridge that was built in the park to connect Anderson and Indian Meadows. What is very important about that is as important as it is individually for the parks, it's really another piece in a much bigger trail system that we're going to continue to try to build out and someday connect the entire town by a pedestrian trail. And by entire town, we mean most of our neighborhoods, our commercial corridors, and our parks will all be connected through a trail system. We have a CFA application in to, hopefully, if we get that, we can rebuild our trail between Freeman's Bridge Road and Shawnee to Freedom Park. That's an important link. But we also have in the CFA study money grant for a study of how we can build an entire pedestrian trail through the town of Glenville. Additionally, we've been working with the Freeman's Bridge Road Complete Streets Committee, and they are talking about putting pedestrian and sidewalk paths on Freeman's Bridge Road. And that obviously, this is the design phase. We then have to go to DOT, then we have to go out and find the money, as we've been doing for the past 8 years. But that will be another huge piece of that trail, pedestrian trail / sidewalk area. So that's all moving together nicely, and I just want to thank, again, Rotary, the YMCA, all the volunteers, our highway department, for all the work they did on that bridge. It's a significant bridge, and it's going to be, I think, well used. Some notes for you guys as we come to end of year. As we do every year, we're forming committees. I know Councilman Martin alluded to one that he's interested in. Anybody who has anybody they know interested in serving on a committee, please let me know. We're trying to finalize the roster now as we speak.
Come join me on the zoning revision committee. It's going to be tons of fun. Not the least bit controversial.
Yeah. So those are forming, and we need those ready by our organizational meeting in January. Our water meter replacement project is moving along perfectly. We're about 70 to 80% done in the neighborhoods. We're moved into the next phase where we're really trying to get kind of the more difficult folks to make an appointment. People haven't responded to the yellow card or maybe even the red card at this point. But we got to get in there, we got to change it. We will be on the new billing system in the next cycle. So this has to get done, and now we're kind of moving into the next phase of getting all those harder to replace properties. On the tree lighting, again, I want to thank Councilman Hell for all his work getting the tree donated and a lot of other work, but I do want to point out again, we had a generous donation to help buy the wreaths this year. One of our residents, Bonnie Osfeld, worked with a business, not even a Glenville business, but a business, Di Lorenzo Law Firm, to donate $5,000 to make that all happen. So that was, I think, great. I'm continuing to work with First National Bank and National Grid to move those poles. Everyone keeps saying that, well, you need a bigger tree, you need this, you need that. This is temporary right now until we get those poles moved, and First National Bank has dedicated to actually planting a permanent tree there, so there'll be a bigger tree. But we're trying to make sure we get those poles moved first. It's taken an act of God and Congress and everybody else in between to get this done, but we will get this done one way or the other. Those poles have to move. And that will help us, I think, in our next phase. Councilman Pitlavani mentioned the website committee. We are moving forward. I think we had a very good meeting. I think we came to a consensus on at least a framework to go forward. I reached out to the department heads. We'll be meeting again tomorrow with the committee, asking department heads to put into an email to us what they're looking for on the website redesign. There's some really good things out there. I think to some of the points made earlier, having clickable PDFs easily put up there, having just an easier user experience for both the back end and the front end is going to be important, and that's going to be part of the enhancement of the new website. So we're continuing to work on that, and hopefully we'll be able to launch that in early 2018. Last thing I want to bring up, you saw it already, you guys are already aware of it, but I just want to point it out in the meeting. We recently received a positive outlook from Moody's. That wasn't from trying to refinance debt or anything like that. Every year they do a review of the towns, and this year they issued a positive outlook for us. Some of the comments in the Moody's report, and it's, I think, nice just to point out, and I'll quote, "The positive outlook reflects the town's strengthening financial position and the expectation that the town will maintain reserves at or above current levels over the medium term. Quote, strong multi-year operating performance underpinning improved cash and reserve positions. Quote, Moody's anticipates the town's fiscal position will remain consistent with fiscal 2016 levels in the near term, giving the town's history of conservative budgeting and strong demonstrated ability to generate operating surpluses. In fiscal 2016, the town generated its 5th consecutive operating fund, growing 2016 available operating fund balance by 38% of revenues. Quote, conservative budgetary management will continue to support healthy financial operations of the town as reflected in its 6th consecutive year of operating surpluses. In 2016, the town adopted a formal fund balance policy of maintaining a minimum 15 to 25% of unassigned fund balance in each of its funds. That was the fund balance policy we put in place. Obviously, this is a recognition of the town's strong budgeting and prudent fiscal management philosophy, and I'm confident that if we continue to do what Moody's has identified we have done in the future, we will see another credit upgrade, and that will help us save potentially hundreds of thousands on finance charges. I want to thank you guys, the board, obviously, for all your good work on this. I want to thank the department heads, the employees for all the work they've done to make this happen, and particularly Jason Cuthbert, our comptroller, for his dedicated hard work. I work with him on this budget very closely. He's a joy to work with. He's not a joy to work with, but he does good work, and we're very lucky to have him. I want to thank him for all his work on that. Other than that, that's all I have. Anything for me?
When's the Freeman's Bridge Road study going to be complete or a draft available?
We're pushing for it by the end of the year,
Okay.
or early into 2018. We're getting very close to having options to go to DOT. The next step is a DOT meeting, for kind of feedback and buy-in. We'll be doing that this next couple of weeks.
You know if they addressed the roundabout at Freeman's Bridge Road?
That's not in there.
It's not?
Not at this point. This is more, this is not, the roundabout's not in the potential complete streets proposal.
Yeah, Mr. Supervisor, regarding the senior center, Deputy Supervisor McFarland actually reached out to me and mentioned that one of the other things that you guys were going to pursue, which Ms. Dardanelli might be interested, they were going to just go back to some of the people that had bid to see were there any obstacles or any pieces of the design that they felt significantly added to the cost. So they were looking for some clarification to see if there's anything.
That's true. Yes, thank you. Anything else? Thank you. Okay. Back to the agenda, we have item number 12, which is a resolution adopting local law number 11 and amending local law number 2 of 2008 regarding the Cold War veterans exemption. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second.
I'll second.
Moved and second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this is a resolution, basically it extends the partial exemption for taxation on real property owned by Cold War veterans. So this is something that had to be reviewed periodically. We're now allowed to make this permanent.
Any other questions or comments? The assessor already informed us that it impacts 114 properties. Not likely to grow by much at all, obviously, because the time frame is capped, and marginal as far as impact on tax receipts. Marginal. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pitlavani?
Yes.
Councilman Hennel?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzler?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 13, adopting local law number 12 of 2017, adding a new article regarding solar energy to chapter 270. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, this is a local law that builds into our zoning code, which are our zoning chapter of our town code, which I think is a smart way to approach the regulation and management of solar energy facilities. This builds a new section into our zoning code that allows for review and regulation of these facilities. And I want to also express appreciation to the Conservation Committee who worked on this. They gave us a lot of good input. And as always, this is not just the result of one or two people, but many here in the town working on this. And I think it's a good local law. Also extend thanks to Mike Cuevas who initiated this. I think we got a good piece of legislation here that's in keeping with that input as well as what we saw in the comprehensive plan.
Thank you, Councilman Martin. I want to thank you for your work on this because this actually grew out of the comp plan rewrite process. And if you recall, we attended many meetings together where this came up and everyone had different ideas. And, you know, even at this point where we're at a ending point, and really a lot of this is the model legislation from the Rotterdam Law, which was passed. So it's very much in keeping with our sister communities. We have had comments about individuals who want different things, either in residential areas or rural areas. We, I think, purposely wanted to make sure that we dealt with solar, where previously we had not. I think this is a huge step forward. Before we just pretended they were sheds and gave up permits as accessory structures, and that's not appropriate. But in this case, I think we do a lot of good work here in making them allowable in many areas of the town. They're not currently allowed. And I think there's the process of the use variance.
Exactly.
That people need.
I was just going to say that.
Examples.
That's always available. And that's the beauty of incorporating this into the zoning code rather than a separate standalone chapter of the town code that affords that kind of relief.
So I think it strikes a good balance of allowing them while trying to really meet the needs of some other people who had some concerns about aesthetics and whatnot. And I think it's a big step forward for the town in welcoming solar. So thank you for your work on that. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pipavani?
Yes.
Councilman Hennel?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzler?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, 14, authorizing the supervisor to enter into an agreement with the ATF. Do I have
So moved.
a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this is, I think this is a great example of the town partnering with different organizations, where this is partnering with the Animal Protective Foundation to, basically for dog sheltering, so daily rate would be $65 per dog per day, which is just an increase of $5 over the previous rate.
Thank you. It's been a great relationship. It's working well. I do want to point out one thing, and this is not the APF's fault at all. This is our fault. And we need to look at our fee schedules in 2018. The clerk, Linda Neals, pointed out to me that we're being charged a daily rate of $65 per dog. Our flat fee to a resident is $25 to reclaim the dog. Our taxpayers are subsidizing fairly significantly lost dogs. I love dogs. I've had two. One passed away unfortunately this past year, but we need to change our fee schedule. We need to make sure we're recouping the cost of that. I just want to point that out as we go into 2018. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pipavani?
Yes.
Councilman Hennel?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzler?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, 15, authorizing the supervisor to enter into a contract with First Light Fiber. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
It was worried. Moved and seconded. Just to start the discussion, this morning is there as the sponsor, and that's probably why we didn't have a motion. This is yet another step in the technology upgrades the town has been working on over the past year or so. I want to thank Jason for all his work on, I know he's out there somewhere.
He's there.
All his work on this. Right now, believe it or not, the town hall is serviced by 6 megs of internet and phone service. I think most homes have more than that. So there was a real need to upgrade our bandwidth speed. This will bring us to 30 here at Town Hall. It will include the History Center, the water plant,
History Center, Senior Center, Highway Garage.
Highway Garage. And it also takes us right now currently dealing with 3 different vendors for 3 different services into one. Where before, if we had a service issue, each vendor would point to the other one and say, you got to talk to that person. So this will streamline that, and it'll also save us about $2,400 a year in services. So we think this is a good upgrade for the town. It saves us money, it makes it more efficient, and provides better service. So I think that's a trifecta. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pipavani?
Yes.
Councilman Hennel?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzler?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, 16, declaring certain equipment and vehicles as surplus. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this is at the recommendation of the town highway superintendent for a number of different items that have been deemed to be surplus, including computer equipment, server room equipment, telephone systems, and numerous other pieces of equipment, including a number of vehicles. If you'd like me to, I can certainly read you the list. There's some gems in the list.
I was going to say, did we get enough use out of our 1990 Ford backhoe? That's quite an old one. 1986 Dozer. Yeah. A lot of good stuff here. I mean, really, the town got a lot of good use out of a lot of the equipment. Stuff going back to the early 2000s.
2005 Ford Crown Vic.
1992 dump and plow. That's a lot of use. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please vote the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pipavani?
Yes.
Councilman Hennel?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzler?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, 17, rejecting all bids received on November 9th for the addition to the Glenville Senior Center and reauthorizing a rebid of the project. Do I have a motion?
So
Do I have
moved.
a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, just, I get to add to your comments already on this. The original was we had a $200,000 project grant, and we could get the bids back, so, again, I think just going back out to some of the people that did bid, just to try and see if there's any clarifications that can be offered.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please report the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pipavani?
Yes.
Councilman Howell?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 18, authorizing the deputy supervisor to employ a rec attendant for skating in Indian Meadows Park. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this is for a seasonal recreational attendant. Hopefully, we will need this person. It's for a $10.40 per hour with no benefits for the skating rink over in Indian Meadows Park.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please report the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Howell?
Yes.
Councilman Pipavani?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, actually two add-ons. We'll take up add-on number 1, resolution adopting Water District 2 for property located at 207, 213 Second Road. Do you have a motion?
I'll move it.
A second.
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Yeah, as I understand it, this is just in keeping with a recent planned unit development, right? Or not so recent, but at 217, it's pretty straightforward. Just setting, I believe, what, the sewer rates, right?
Yes.
Pretty great.
And authorizing the extension.
Yeah, and authorizing the extension, yes.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record your vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pipavani?
Yes.
Councilman Howell?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution is add-on 2, adopting an extension of sewer district 2 for the same property. Do you have a motion?
I'll move it.
A second.
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
This mirrors the prior resolution pretty much, pretty straightforward.
It's just for the sewer.
Yeah.
I guess whatever goes in has to come out. That's how it works. So with that, do I have a motion? Or no other comments? Please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pipavani?
Yes.
Councilman Howell?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next order of business is new business, and I'll start on my left with Councilman Trump.
No new business.
Councilman Martin?
I just want to welcome the youth to the Maritime Center. I know the applicant feels like at times we were a little stringent on our application requirements for the PUD, but I think we were just trying to be consistent with the standards that we've been holding other applicants to. But I think it's a fine use of the site. I have an autistic son, so I have a great respect for what can be done with early intervention and therapy. So I think that's a great use for the site, and I wish you the best.
Thank you, Councilman Pipavani.
No new business.
Okay, I have no new business, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move that.
Second.
I will second that.
Moved in second, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, we're adjourned.